New Zealand is a place of spectacular and diverse landscapes, as well as being home to some truly unique species. There are a host of non-native mammals that were introduced more than a century ago. Today, New Zealand has become an international destination for hunters from all over the world. Hunting has become a controversial practice in modern times. My name is Dan Cabela, and I am traveling the globe to explore the true impact hunting is having on our remaining wild landscapes. This practice goes back as far as human history can remember. But does it have a place in modern conservation? I am traveling to New Zealand with my wife, Darlene, in pursuit of two species in specific, the Himalayan tahr and the chamois. Along the way, I hope to learn about the role that sustainable harvesting of these non-native species has to play in the country. Touching down in Queenstown, I'm looking forward to talking with some of the locals to find out more about the history of how species like tahr, chamois, and red deer ended up in New Zealand, and the controversy surrounding them. The country has very unique native flora and fauna, with no native land mammals. During the late 1800s and early 1900s, many exotic species were introduced from around the world. Most of the species introduced have flourished, and with no natural predators apart from man, their populations have grown exponentially. Species such as tahr, chamois, and red deer have bred prolifically. New Zealand has been seen as a hunter's paradise for generations, and the presence of these introduced species has brought hunters from around the world in pursuit of these iconic mammals. I will be hunting red stag, chamois, and Himalayan tahr with Venator, a family-owned local hunting operation here in New Zealand. The tahr and chamois are at high elevation in the mountains, so we need to wait for a gap in the weather before we can head up. In the meantime, I will be heading out to the hills in search of a trophy red stag. After a few hours of hard trekking, we come over a hill and see a red stag that is exactly what we have been searching for.
Good shot.
A successful hunt and a meaningful initiation into the New Zealand hunting tradition. Awesome stag. Thank you, Marcus.
Congratulations, Dan. Well done.
While these non-native species certainly have financial value to hunters, they were brought in by humans, and some are concerned about the unintended consequences of this many animals on the native fauna and flora.
In relation to the existence of non-native game species in New Zealand, we have a really interesting and checkered past. So game animals in New Zealand, so deer, tahr, chamois and pigs, were released from sort of the mid-1800s through to the early 1900s. They were essentially brought over from England and they were gifted, and they were brought here through the acclimatisation societies to provide for sporting purposes. Right from day dot, we've pretty much had a passive approach to management, and something the Game Animal Council is really strongly working to improve is to have a more active management model.
Today, there is a somewhat controversial culling program in effect with the Himalayan tahr population. Tahr are a species that breed rapidly and are able to eat a wide variety of vegetation, making their impact on the habitat substantial. Ecologists argue that their populations need to be managed drastically to avert further damage to the alpine ecosystem. In 1993, the New Zealand government implemented the Himalayan Tahr Control Plan, aiming to reduce tahr numbers to roughly 10,000 individuals across the country. While the government is aiming to rehabilitate the indigenous flora and fauna, the hunting sector is concerned about the lack of research and the consequences for the industry as a whole.
The controversial piece in all of this was that the Tahr plan had never properly been implemented. There'd been a lack of science, a lack of monitoring, and a lack of working constructively with the hunting sector.
There's been a lot of controversy surrounding the tahr in New Zealand with the government culling. And do you have an opinion or a take on that?
Oh, yeah, I guess it's funny. I'm somewhere in the middle. There's definitely places that need culling. Areas are starting to get pretty hammered, but there just, unfortunately, there hasn't been as much science behind it. Culling those specific areas, it sort of seems to be a bit of a blanket cull, which has been a bit of a shame. So, yeah, it'd be nice to see some stats and a bit more research go into it.
Is there not enough local hunting, outside of the international hunter to control the amount of animals that are on these islands?
So if we look at Tahr as an example, they're very prolific breeders. They're a goat. They breed extremely well. And basically what you largely got into was, everyone was out trophy hunting, looking for that bull, that big bull to put on the wall. And there probably wasn't as much focus on managing the population, the females, the juveniles, inferior bulls. So yeah, there's definitely some changes needed on the hunting culture, but also maybe some sort of management or tag system, or, something implemented that helps better, manage the species.
And so the government culling of the tahr, do you feel like that was necessary?
Not to the extent of what they've done it. I think there could have been a lot more research done and some better plans put in place, engaging all the different parties and kind of actually having everyone buy into it rather than just the Department of Conservation or the government going out and doing what they did. All it did was create a lot of animosity between all of the various parties, and it didn't really, it's a short-term fix.
Recreational hunters have been opposed to large-scale culling, which they felt would reduce their hunting opportunities, and questioned if the numbers weren't sufficiently researched. However, the government believes that large-scale reduction in animal numbers is necessary to save the mountain habitat. Both sides of this debate have valid points. While management is important, the hunting and exotic game in New Zealand creates a lot of value for its people. So since we've been here, we've had some challenging weather. We haven't been able to get in the chopper to go up into the mountains, but today looks clear, the stars are out. So it looks pretty positive, and we're going to head to the airport, and hopefully we'll be up in the mountains soon. This landscape is absolutely breathtaking as we fly up in search of a chamois, and it's not long before we catch our first glimpse of this elusive species. Chamois inhabit some of the most challenging environments in New Zealand and are a species of goat antelope known for their agility in mountainous terrain. We're dropped off at a good vantage point. Coming over a ridge, it's not long before we get our first opportunity at a shot.
That's a rodeo and a half. I've never done anything like that in my life. It's the giveaway to you. 12 I've ever. Big buck. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how we're going to hunt the Tahr, and what that looks like.
Pretty much prime rut, so that, yeah, they've really sort of geared up really well now and looking pretty good. They've moved up the mountain, chased the females up, sort of up on the ridges and up quite reasonably high. Lots of glassing until we find something, and then a bit of walking.
Sounds like a great hunt. New Zealand is home to the only huntable herd of tahr outside the Himalayas, making them a very marketable resource of global importance. A trophy tahr hunt can cost between $15,000 to $20,000 US each. It's another beautiful day, and we are heading up into the mountains once more, this time in search of a mature bull tahr. Himalayan tahr live in high altitudes and extreme terrain, and hunts fetch massive price tags because of the expense involved in pursuing them, as well as the fact that they are regarded as a high-value trophy animal by international hunters. After a few hours of searching, we spot a herd of tahr on the other side of a steep ravine and begin our stalk in. It's a long shot at well over 300 yards, but we finally get an opportunity.
It's a bit windy up here. It was blowing me around a bit, but made a good shot, and he's fallen. And yeah, this was a true tahr hunt.
The tahr is on the other side of a very steep ravine, so we need to walk a long way around to get to him. It's an extremely tough hike, maybe the most difficult one I've faced, but certainly an exhilarating one. Looking into the eyes of an animal that you have harvested is always an extremely humbling experience. Having traversed the mountains that these animals navigate so nimbly has been eye-opening for me, and I have a huge respect for the endurance of these beautiful creatures. My adventure in these mountains has come to an end, and the chopper is here to pick us up. I'm exhausted and a little sad to leave these awe-inspiring peaks, but I am looking forward to meeting a few more people in the hunting sector to learn more about how things work here.
The industry that tahr and chamois hunting in New Zealand creates is massive. So back in 1993, when the Himalayan Tahr Control Plan was formed, there was only 15 identified commercial operators. As we look today, there's around 500 people that are employed directly through hunting.
Tahr hunting alone generates an estimated $12 million annually, most of which stems from international tourists. And the hunting industry supports the economy in rural parts of the country.
I've just had some recent studies come out, and that put that 2023 season possibly as high as $300 million. So tahr and chamois, red deer, they're massive for New Zealand. We've got some of the best hunting in New Zealand, and it's a big part of supporting those rural and those regional communities, right across New Zealand.
Well, we've just hit 1,400 trophies. We just got a little bit busy this year.
Yeah, if you're getting 1,400 trophies, and you probably don't have too much time for guiding.
Yeah, it's been pretty busy, just processing every day. At the moment, just trying to get through this busy time. So we'll process all the export for about another 5 weeks, and then from then that's when we start the taxidermy, get all the skins tanned and start getting a bit of the taxidermy done and send those away.
Yeah. How many people do you employ to keep all this running?
So I've got 7 full-time staff and then 3 other part-time staff that comes in for our busy time of the year. Yeah.
You ship off the tanning, or you do that?
We do all the tanning here ourselves for the mounts we do here. All the rugs, we have another guy we contract all the rugs to, and that keeps him busy with 3 staff as well. I've just done the rugs.
Yeah, so this is just one other example of how hunting benefits the local economy. You know, I mean, we're going to also take a look at the, meat production, some other things, but yeah, you got a pretty big operation here. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
A big industry in the country is also the market for wild game meat that has been established. Venator has a large operation that employs over 50 people, which in turn creates downstream business opportunities for the local community. Businesses like this break down harvested meat into steaks, stewing meat, and sausages, and are another example of how the hunting of tahr, red deer, and chamois supports small local businesses.
I'm Evan Dennison. I'm a home kill operator, dealing with the home kill side of hunting and wild game and farmers meat. So we'll just put these back straps in a bag and we'll vacuum pack them up. Then we'll proceed inside with the trim and we'll make a sausage up.
The entire animal is used and makes for high-quality meat for human consumption. Historically, with countrywide culling operations, animals were often not extracted from the hills. Unlike hunting operations and home-use hunters, the food resource wasn't utilized.
This is a fine example of what wild game can become.
It'd be good if we can see more of those coming through the butcher shops and processing.
Yeah.
The indiscriminate culling and just leaving them on the hill is really not an option anymore. So it's good to see the tahr being looked after and a lot more of it eaten.
Government's thing on the culling of tahr is, my opinion, it does need to be done to a point, but it has to be sustainable. We still want hunters going out into the hills, enjoying themselves, getting food for the table.
But I think the culling has to be a fraction more controlled than it is now, and the controlled culling is essential for New Zealand game.
Yep. Agreed.
We've come to the end of our journey, and nothing gives me more joy than sharing the meat of an animal that I have harvested with other people. Tahr is a very popular game meat in New Zealand, and I can see why. I've never tasted anything like it. The meat is lean and similar to lamb in taste, but with a rich and slightly gamey flavor. The hunting industry is protecting landscapes for wildlife through its existence. Though not technically a native species in New Zealand, the future existence of these magnificent creatures in the wild may very well depend on New Zealand's ability to manage its population sustainably.
The global importance of protecting tahr as a species is that in their native home range, they do have predators, they have diseases, and that tahr is at a near threatened level. In New Zealand, we have a sustainable population, we have a healthy population, and it needs to be managed, it needs to be protected. We don't know what's going to happen in their native home range in the future, so therefore I think it's important that we do have this resource, that if something does happen, we can share the resource that was once gifted to us and share it back to them.
While the management of non-native species may be necessary, the hunting of species such as tahr and chamois in New Zealand supports a large industry that feeds a variety of businesses. To eradicate these species entirely would be a massive economic loss for the country, while hunting can be a part of the solution in managing the populations.